Okay, also, and then summer ended. Yes. Ich glaube, ich packe das jetzt einfach noch direkt dabei. There was no denying it. Today was the very last day of summer. Tomorrow you were heading to class. You were excited to go back. Anxiety gnawed at your stomach. It was a bummer. Your feelings were muddled. Ich glaube, wir sind excited, einfach weil es ja dann weitergeht. Und wenn jetzt Schule anfängt und wir schnell überstehen, dann ist auch wieder Sommer, ne? So, you were excited to go back. Those summer had been fun, you had taken your fill, and now you were longing for fresh excitement. A new school year was full of potential. You got dressed, not in vacation. Warum kriege ich die ganze Zeit so komische Wörter? The day before you, but contemplating what lay ahead of you tomorrow. Life was sure going to be different. You had come to think of the summer vacation as the norm, but school stretched out for the majority of the year, whereas the summer vacation was just a break in the middle. So rather than it being different, it was kind of a return to the normal? What did your normal life really mean? You considered how fondly your moms talked about their summer vacations as kids. You dimly recognized that one year the pattern of school and summer itself would be over for good. It was hard to imagine. You'd gotten distracted, one arm still out of a sleeve. You pulled it through and put your mind back to the present. This season had brought about plenty of changes of its own, like Kira's visit, though that, too, was coming to an end today. You were happy you'd finally gotten the chance to know her. You had become extremely fond of her. You didn't really like her. Your mind wasn't made up on how you felt about her. You didn't care one way or another. You were happy you'd finally gotten the chance to know her. Yeah. She was interesting to be around. You liked how easy it was to talk to her. You finished dressing, which was good. Cove would be there any moment. You'd agreed to see his mom off together. Officially, the plan was that he would come over to bring you round to his house when she was ready to set off. But you both knew that you'd be hanging out for at least a little while beforehand. Kira's visit had troubled Cove when it first happened. It had been a sudden change, thanks to Mr. Holland's infamous tendency to surprise people, but once he was able to adjust, he'd been in pretty good spirits with her around. It was a relief for everyone. You turned to your desk where the box containing your accessories resided. You'd gone out and bought an anklet. You'd gone out and bought several anklets. Accessories reminded you of that anklet conversation. You still didn't have any yourself. You'd gone out and bought several anklets. Na, eins reicht, ne? You'd gone out and bought an anklet. Your eyes bored into the box. Should you wear it for Cove's visit today? Ja. You put one ankle bracelet on. Your heart pounded as you slipped the hoop through the clasp and fastened it in place. Would Cove spot it? Your face grew hot as you imagined how he might react. The next thought that crossed your mind was, it would only be polite to get the door for Cove. You went downstairs to wait. You couldn't wait to see Cove, so you went downstairs to meet him when he arrived. Cove knew your house well enough you could lounge in your room to wait for him. You couldn't wait to see Cove, so you went downstairs to meet him when he arrived. You bounded down the stairs, your hand gliding over the rail. You wanted to make sure you got there first. If you didn't hurry, your moms might answer it. It was only a few minutes later when the doorbell rang. As you'd chosen to stand beside it to wait for Cove, there was no delay in pulling it open. Cove was there, just as you'd expected. Seeing you, he flashed you a bright grin.
Hey.
Hi, Jenny. Hey, Cove, come on in. Once he'd stepped inside, you beckoned for him to follow you upstairs. Back up in your room, you sat down on your bed and waited for Cove to settle in as you knew he would. With other guests, you might have offered them a seat, but you and Cove were long past those tentative stages of friendship. Your room was as familiar to him as his own. You watched as Cove sat down in your desk chair, his preferred spot. True. He rolled it closer to the bed to make it easier to chat, tweaking the angle so that he was facing you fully. Once happy with the position, he leaned in towards you, hands held in his lap. His actions weren't the ones of someone who planned on moving from his spot anytime soon, even though you had appointed to keep together that day. When is your mom leaving?
Don't worry about it.
We've got some time. She's still got a shower and stuff before she goes. She didn't want me to just keep hanging around while she was doing that. He lifted his head, his gaze drifting out through the window, and chuckled. I can't believe she's already leaving, just when I'm getting used to her being there every day. He leaned back in the chair, a wry smile tickling his cheek. And time's going by so fast. He cocked his head thoughtfully before shrugging. He ran a hand through his hair before shaking his head, as if shaking off the topic like a dog whipping off water following a dip in the sea. Cove looked back to you, lips parted as if he was about to speak, but instead his eyes widened and his mouth closed into a tiny frown. Something had caught his attention. Ja, was wohl? Ja, was wohl? Something wrapped around where the end of your leg met your foot. He cast his eyes back up to your face, then down to your ankle, and back to your face. He repeated the process once, twice more, as if struggling to hold the two items in tandem. Maybe he was weighing up whether this could be a coincidence or not. Or maybe he was just too shy to verbalize his thoughts, or was still trying to find the words, and this was the most he could manage. The attention made you feel bashful, amused, thrilled, regretful, pleased. Ich würde sagen amused. Wir haben es ja extra für ihn gemacht. Amused. It was hard not to laugh at Cove's scrambled response. You stifled your laughter with a hand clasped firmly around your mouth. Even so, you could feel the way the smile had lifted your face. On his next glance back to your face, Cove saw your expression had shifted. You watched as his bewilderment eroded into mortification as you realized that he had been caught staring. Süß. He quickly spun in the chair to face the wall instead, allowing you to glimpse the flush that had spread all the way to his ears. He twisted in his seat, wringing his hands and determinedly avoiding looking in your direction again. It seemed that he decided against saying anything at all. Does it look good? You stayed quiet yourself. Sorry, what's the problem, Cove? Does it look good? Nein, komm, wir sind mal auch leise. Wir wollen ihn mal nicht so viel triezen hier. You stayed quiet yourself. Cove mumbled something unintelligibly as he slumped lower. With how he was hunched over, the quiet words had no chance of reaching you. You weren't going to get anything out of him in the state. You waited for him to come around before speaking again. Finally, he piped up very softly. Did you do it because of what I said before? I mean, you know, the last few words were whispered as though they were a precious secret. The ankle bracelet. Das würde ich ja so sagen. Vielleicht. I don't know what you're talking about. You shrugged. No. Yes. Ich würde sagen, maybe. Ich will einfach nur mal gucken, was dabei rumkommt. Wenn das witzig gesagt wird, dann behalten wir das bei. Wenn nicht, gehen wir zurück und gehen auf Yes, okay? Okay. Ist mir egal, was ihr sagt. Ich will das so machen. Maybe. His eyes squeezed shut. You had no idea if the answer made him feel better or more nervous. He eventually looked down at his lap, where his fingers were flexing and curling in an awkward dance of nerves. His chest rose as he breathed deep. Ja, okay, dann war es richtig. Well, it looks good on you. Your heart skittered in your chest like a stone skipping across water. One big leap from the unexpected compliment, followed by a series of shorter ones as you absorbed the words. You beamed at him. He was looking at you again at last and returned this smile shyly. This really couldn't have worked out better, you thought. And there was nothing else he could add after that. The conversation lapsed into another comfortable lull. Cove swung his feet underneath the seat of the chair, eyes resting on you. Having him over here was so nice. No matter how you spent the time, you always felt better for being in his company. You couldn't help but adore him, both as a friend and in a way that plucked at your heart a vague yearning for more. Maybe it was because summer was almost over that your feelings were rushing in on you now, like high tide at the end of a long day. Summer was such a meaningful time for the two of you. Not only because it was your first met, but because it was a season that you could spend almost entirely as you pleased, and you both chose to spend it together. Kein Genre mehr. Jetzt bin ich am Überlegen, hätte ich doch einen Cut machen müssen und eine neue Aufnahme? Aber egal. You wanted to let Cove know how much you liked him. You didn't know completely what you felt. You were too scared to let him know. You weren't ready to admit it to Cove now. You wanted to let Cove know how much you liked him. Ich glaube, jetzt ist schon fast, läuft fast über. Muss endlich sagen, ja. Now was the time. You couldn't go another day without expressing these feelings you held. Chat. Oh my god. Chat. Was mache ich denn jetzt? You spoke words of affection. You confessed by kissing him. You asked if you could kiss him. Geht so, Hallöchen, wie geht's dir? Was machen wir denn? Wir fragen ihn. Das letzte Mal hat es nicht so gut funktioniert, weil wir es einfach so gemacht haben. Und jetzt wollen wir Content. Wir wollen nicht Content, wir wollen Consent. Okay? You asked if you could kiss him. Oh, wow, das ist direkt. Can I kiss you? Cove's eyebrows shot up fast enough that they could have flown off his face. As a match, his mouth might have dropped off his head for how much it fell open. What? Why? Ich glaube, wir müssen gleich schon wieder zurück machen. He clapped his hands over his mouth, his eyebrows lowered, but expression no less terrified. Oh no, that's not how I meant it. It's not a bad idea or something, but why just say that right now? Because I want to right now. I don't know. I don't want to wait any longer. Why not? You couldn't answer. I don't want to wait any longer. Was machen wir denn jetzt? Because I want to right now oder I don't wanna wait any longer? Ich möchte nicht länger warten. I don't wanna wait any longer. Cove's chest began to rise and fall visibly as he swallowed short breaths in quick succession.
Sorry.
Sorry, Cove. Sorry for being weird. It's just I kind of thought or hoped that sometimes something like this might happen with us talking about liking each other. You did? You were thinking about it before? He nodded ever so slightly. Your face felt a lot hotter after that. Cove brightened a little at your positive reaction and his explanation continued. Could sort of picture how it might go. What would it be like with you and me? But just the first part, I couldn't ever imagine anything that come after. And now it's actually happened. We're there. He took another deep breath, stuttering on the exhale. This makes things different. Things don't have to be different. I pretty much imagined you'd react like this. This is hard for me. Should we find a crystal ball for answers? Ich verstehe jetzt nicht, wenn ich jetzt mache, things don't have to be different, bedeutet das, dass wir dann sagen, so, ja, okay, nee, no to feelings und sowas? Ich bin verwirrt. Ich verstehe gerade so ein bisschen den Kontext nicht. Ich gehe jetzt erstmal mit things don't have to be different, weil wenn er jetzt Angst hat, dass wenn die sich ihre Liebe zugestehen und so weiter und gestehen, dass sich dann alles verändert, dass wir damit meinen, dass sich aber nichts ändern muss. Oder er hat Angst, dass, oder wir sagen damit im Prinzip aus, dass wir nur Freunde bleiben können. Ich verstehe gerade nicht, was dann passiert, ne? So, things don't have to be different. He gave you a wan smile. Thanks, but I don't think that'll work. I can't just forget. I definitely can't. Finally, Cove drew in a breath deeper than you would have thought his lungs could hold. They must have managed somehow, however, because he held it in without so much as a puff exhaled. That would have made sense if he had been about to dive underwater, but sitting in the middle of your room, it was an odd and concerning choice. Cove, are you alright? Warte, passiert es gleich? He didn't respond, sitting as rigidly as a statue. You were about to get up, or at least nudge the chair with your foot. A foot? Foot. When he let out the breath and took another. This one, while deep, wasn't quite as dramatic. Okay, was okay. Okay, oh, es passiert gleich. Ein Kuss. His voice cracked on the word, the O squeaking out, followed by a dip on the second syllable. You perked up, straightening up in your seat. It wasn't clear whether it was a response to your original question or the follow-up where you'd ask if he was alright, but having him speak again was a good start. We can kiss. I wanna do that. A gasp escaped you. It was okay, he wanted to kiss you. You kissed him, aber einfach drauf. You kissed him. Boom. You untangled yourself from your resting position and stood up, realizing your intent to actually go for it. Cove straightened up in the chair, his hands coiled together in his lap. As you moved towards him, you noticed his knees knocking together as he trembled. His decision not to rise from the chair made perfect sense. If he was that shaky while sitting down, there was no way he'd manage to stand without at least one of you falling over. Das wird jetzt hot. Your legs brushed against his quivering ones as he came to a stop in front of him. Cove was staring up at you. As you leaned in towards him, he echoed the motion and drew in towards you. Oh. Once you were close enough to feel Cove's breath on your face, you closed your eyes. The last thing you saw was Cove quickly doing the same. Ja! Ja! Das brauche ich. Das brauche ich. Tada! Ja! Warte. Also er ist so dunkel, ne? Oh. Okay, ich hole sie. Uno momento. So. 15 Minuten, wa? Okay. Bis 44. So. Your lips met with Cove's for a moment. His lips were pressed tightly together, unyielding, but it was alright. You were kissing him, and he was kissing you. Ah. Welchen Moment bitte? Hä? Your stomach somersaulted. Was bedeutet das? You couldn't believe it was really happening. In that moment, it felt warm and it felt nice and it felt right. He drew back and Kof slipped down into the chair, the knuckles of his hands pale after gripping so tightly. Thinking that he could do with some space to breathe figuratively and literally, he took a step back. Kof shut up, his stance rigid. Bitte nicht kotzen. Kof plastered a hand over his mouth, his eyes shut tight. His back then became bowed, shrinking him down. Oh Gott, was hier alles passiert. Unglaublich. So, you could only just make out the few words he managed to summon. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I can't believe we actually... His eyes flew open wide, but he didn't look your way, let alone met your gaze.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, we kissed! We kissed! Yeah! Ah, you were full of nerves. His reaction was really cute. You thought his fluster was funny. It worried you that he was so frantic. Ich glaube, wir wären auch genauso, nur wir sind das halt so nach innen gekehrt. You were full of nerves. Blinking, you tried to process what had happened. You laid a hand on your cheek, half wondering about pinching yourself to check this wasn't a dream. You found your skin as hot as a car door at noon on a summer's day. Kof only slammed his eyes closed once again. Did you like it? Was that bad? It was nice, wasn't it? Kof, it's okay. Did I do something wrong? It was nice, wasn't it? Wir fanden es gut. Wir haben ja gesagt, es hat sich schön angefühlt. Es hat sich auch richtig angefühlt. Das heißt, für uns war es schön. It was nice, wasn't it? He was still holding the hand to his face, but in an attempt to answer, he emitted a muffled whimper. With that obviously not working, he uncovered his face at last, bringing the hand to lay against his chest, and looked at you. Yeah. He opened his mouth, poised to speak, and pursed his lips as words failed him. On his third or fourth attempt, you heard what he had to say. Jennys Freudengrinsen macht mir gerade echt Angst. Ich finde das toll. I did like it. I'm glad that we, you know... He swallowed, seemingly not able to speak the actual word. That we kissed? Kof ducked his head but nodded. You got the impression that he was grateful that you'd finished the thought, but your direct words had pierced his Achillessehne. You grinned, thrilled that the experience had been a welcome one. The smile on Kof's face was real but wary, not unlike the one he wore after a long and exhausting day of activity. Like when he'd made a new personal best. The work had been hard, but the reward had been worth it. With some newfound confidence, he drew himself up as he inhaled deeply. Each word he spoke next was delicate.
Jenny.
Jenny, I like you. A lot. Probably way too much. He ducked his head bashfully and opened an eye, peeking at you through the hair that had fallen over his face like a veil. He'd managed a smile.
Thanks for waiting for me.
Thanks for waiting for me. Oh, ich kann nicht mehr. Ja. His eyes sparkled just looking at you, his affection transparently clear. He could never hide what he was feeling, and you couldn't be more grateful for that today. You smiled at him, you hugged him, I like you too. You breathed a sigh of relief, I like you even more. Now you hugged him. You closed the already short distance between you and Cove and wrapped your arms around him. He looked down to meet your eyes and giggled nervously. He did his best to wind his arms around you in return. It was a little awkward, but even with the benefit of hindsight, you wouldn't have changed a thing. The strength of your feelings had demanded immediate action. It felt so nice to hold each other that way, now that everything was out in the open. Finally, you separated again. He rubbed his eyes with the heel of his hands. It was an action usually reserved for much later in the day, but at this point it already felt like a long day. Aww. Cove then pressed a hand on his creased forehead.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Does this mean I'm your boyfriend or something now? Should we tell our parents? I don't know what dad or mom would do. Oh, du bist so süß. Ich kann das nicht. Oh, mir ist so warm. There were a lot of concerns in there. You honed in on the simplest. There was no way your moms would let you have a boyfriend, even though that word juxtaposed with Cove's name made your heart race. My parents won't let me have a boyfriend or even a something. It's not fair. I wish we were... Ah! Nein, ich wollte das nicht anklicken. Huch. Oh, ich wollte das nicht anklicken. It's not fair. I wish we were older. It's okay. It doesn't matter though. We like each other and that's what's important. You didn't know what to say. It doesn't matter though. We like each other and that's what's important. Nothing anybody else thought about your relationship changed what it was between the two of you. Cove lifted his hand from his chest and reached towards you, halting halfway, then slowly, cautiously hooked his fingers around yours, his palm pressed against the back of your hand. You let him hold your hand. His thumb slipped into the crook of your palm. He squeezed your hand gently. During step 2, confess to Cove that... ich konnte die Errungenschaft nicht zu Ende lesen. Er ist so süß überfordert. Ja, oder? Oder? Es wird nicht komisch, Red Wolf. Es ist schön. We can get it to work. We always figure things out sooner or later. Ja. You're right. No matter what, it's okay in the end when it's the two of us. Your forthright statement made Cove gasp, but the smile that followed and his tighter grip on your hand told you that he had appreciated it. Jenny, Cove! Und dann auf einmal direkt... The sudden call from downstairs caught you both unaware. You'd nearly forgotten the world outside your room. From the guilty look on his face, Cove had done the same. Just had a call. Cove's mom is ready to go. If you're quick, she might keep the mandated motherly smothering to a minimum. You doubted that, but it was nice that Mom and Mrs. Priest had their strange sense of humor in common. Your eyes met Cove's. Wordlessly, you headed downstairs together. Each step on the way there was painfully slow, like he was trying to delay the inevitable. His whole body tensed, leaving the house, and Cove rose altogether before you both could cross the street.
Oh.
The door's open. Dad must be taking her stuff out. He swallowed hard. She's really gonna leave. You smiled at him reassuringly. You gave his back a pat. You rested your hand on his arm. This isn't the last time you'll ever see. You rested your hand on his arm. You felt a small shiver ripple through his body as the warmth from your hand sank in. Cove looked at you like he was hoping you had a solution for how he was feeling, and all you could do was give his arm a squeeze for support. At that, some of the conflict wearing on his face eased a bit. Together, you went across the street and inside his house, finding his parents in the living room surrounded by his mom's packed things. Hello, Daddy! Hey, kids! Good timing. I just called the taxi. And hi, Jenny. So glad I get to see you today. It was fabulous getting to know you this summer. I finally got to put up a face to the name I've heard so many times. She winked and Cove pouted on cue over the teasing. I'm really happy I got to meet you too. I hope you had a good time visiting. Bye. You didn't say anything in response. I'm really happy I got to meet you too. Hopefully it won't be too long before we see each other again. Ich glaube nicht. Nodding, Kira turned her attention back to her boys. She patted Cliff on the arm with a warm smile, and then she enveloped Cove in a crushing hug. Initially, Cove squirmed to break free from her grip, but his mom was unfazed and kept him locked in place. Heartbeats later, he gave in and hugged her back tightly.
I'm so glad.
And I'm so happy this trip was a success. Cliff looked like he was bursting with pride. Well, not 100% success, but still a passing grade, I think. Cove's Dad ist einfach ein Daddy. Ich kann nicht, aber der hat abgenommen. Hat er abgenommen? War der schon immer so dürr? Naja. Thinking back on everything that happened this summer, he started to look sheepish. Cliff scratched the side of his head and an awkward chuckle escaped Cove. There were ways it could have gone smoother. I'm still keeping that in mind for the future.
All right.
Good for you, Cliff, and I'll be trying harder to stay more in the loop. You watched as Cove smiled softly at both his parents, and you felt relieved seeing how much the whole family had come together since you first met them. Despite any underlying troubles, love was still there. After that, it wasn't long before the taxi arrived, rolling up in front of the house and in clear view of the open door. Kira stood up, smiling sadly. Well, that's my ride. Yeah. No. The matching reply got a chuckle out of Kira as you all filed out of the house. Father and son went with Kira's bags in hand. Once outside, you spotted your family waiting by the street, and to your surprise, Derek was also with them. He stood uncomfortably and he waved as soon as you noticed him.
What's up?
Hi, Jenny. Hi, Cove. When did you get there? My dad dropped me off just a little bit ago. Thought I could visit one more time before school started.
Sorry.
You picked a busy time, sorry. Derek couldn't even look at Cove. He nervously kept rolling a pebble with the bottom of his shoe.
Sorry.
I wasn't even thinking that your mom would be leaving today. I'm sorry, dude. What? You're not interrupting anything. You're always welcome here. It would have been sad if I didn't get to say goodbye before leaving. I think so too. It was apparent Derek would have preferred to have gotten there at a more opportune moment. He never liked seeming impolite, but their reassuring words soothed his worries. Und wisst ihr, was sehr interessant ist? Cove hat gerade eben einfach Dereks Emotionen im Prinzip aufgesogen und darauf reagiert. Das konnte der vorher nicht. Der hat richtig Empathie gezeigt gerade eben. So. The tension he was holding in his body lessened, and he looked like he was feeling much more like himself. Bye, Derek. It was fun getting to know you. Bye, ma'am. Is there anything I can do to help? Nah, don't worry yourself over that. We're just about set. In that short amount of time, Cliff had gathered and packed the bags into the trunk. Kira took one last look at everyone and sighed. Alright, I don't want to keep the driver waiting. It's time to head out. The little crowd that had formed around started their chorus of farewells and well wishes traveling, but Kira still made no move to get into the taxi. She placed her attention on Cove. I'll call when I get to the airport and when I make it to Nevada. Also, you better call the moment you walk in the door at home, otherwise we'll be wondering all night if you got into trouble on the way there.
Can do.
I can do that. And could you call tomorrow too, so I can tell you how school went? Of course. I want to hear all about it. Kira put a hand on Kov's head and affectionately ruffled his hair one last time. She then let go, only to move on to squeezing his cheeks in her hand instead. Mom!
Oh.
I love you so much, baby. She was chuckling by the time she freed him and rounded things off with a small tap on the tip of his nose. Kov rubbed at his face with a grin. Finally, she walked to the car while waving and took her seat in the taxi. Cliff hooked an arm around Kov's shoulder and kept him close as it began to pull away. For a moment, Kov looked up at his dad and then wrapped an arm across his back.
Bye.
Bye, Mom. Bye, travel safe. Kira rolled down the window and stuck her head out of it. She waved again while blowing kisses at Kov and Cliff. See you again. Before she was out of sight, you decided to call out with your family and hers, wave goodbye, watch quietly. Call out. Ja, wir sagen auch. Kov wird langsam erwachsen. Ja, der wird langsam erwachsen. Richtig toll. Aber wir werden auf jeden Fall es den anderen auch gleich tun und dann auch schöne Heimreise wünschen. Call out with your family and hers. As you added your voice to the others, you watched Kira's smile grow larger. The cab turned down another road and completely disappeared from view. Kov let go of his dad and took a few steps out into the empty street, still looking in the direction his mom went. He smiled quietly, deep in thought. You got the impression Kov was feeling better than he was earlier. He was finally content with the way things were. Cages. The summer breeze brought a sweet-sounding jingle across the way. It was the wind chime you had given Kov. He had hung it at the front of his house, and it had become a very familiar sound in this neighborhood. You jumped a bit when your mom put a hand on your shoulder, pulling you away from your thoughts. She smiled when you looked at her. This was a great vacation, huh? Ja. Yeah. You nodded in agreement. Yeah, it was a good one. Kov walked back over to the group, still genuinely happy. Derek grinned at him welcomely, and everyone else there smiled at him, even Elizabeth. Wow, well. Ma clapped her hands together, bringing everyone's attention back to the present. It's almost lunchtime. I think I'll put something special together. Her eyes sparkled with a plan, and Mom smiled. I bet you could use some help with that. That'd be absolutely wonderful. Derek glanced between the two, his eyebrows furrowed. Is there something I could do? Your mom's exchanged a fond expression. Ma shook her head.
How sweet.
That's very sweet, Derek, but it's alright. It's not your job. Technically, your dad left you under Cliff's watch. You're meant to be taken care of by him, not doing chores for the neighbors. Well, Mom laughed a little over her own joke. You watched Derek look away, discouraged.
It's okay.
It's okay, I don't mind. He was a little bashful about it. He wondered if Mom's joke had just reminded him that he wasn't initially meant to be invited to lunch. It was getting a little awkward. Mom grinned sympathetically. Her comment was meant to lighten the mood, not bring it back down. Ma tried again to get things moving forward. Why don't you kids go have fun? You all can come back in about an hour. We'll make enough for everyone. Mom nodded in agreement.
Sounds good.
Another stunning idea, Lanny. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds like a plan then. I don't want to cramp your style. I've got some stuff to work on so I can be out of your hair this afternoon. You should come by later too. No reason you should be the odd man out. Mom seemed amused as Cliff rubbed his neck nervously. He grinned a wavering but pleased smile.
Thanks very much.
I appreciate the invite. He looked over the assembled crowd with knowing glances. I can help too. With as many people as you're feeding, that's going to be a lot of food. Didn't you hear what we told Derek? It wouldn't be fair to make you cook when we're the ones who are inviting you. Ma raised an eyebrow when Cliff waved it off.
Come on.
I insist. Derek would be missing time with his pals. This would be a break for me. I'm quite the chef. Ma and Mom exchanged further glances before Mom shrugged.
True.
An airtight argument. If you're sure, we'll be happy to have you, Chef Cliff. Cliff's grin widened and seemed more hyped than you'd expect him to be about helping with lunch. Cove shook his head and fond smile on his face. A fond smile on his face, okay. Then all us grown-up people will be heading inside. I assume the rest of you kiddos are staying out? Maybe not all of them. Ma tilted her head, a silent question for Elizabeth. Your sister thought for a moment.
All right.
I'll stay with the kids.
That's fantastic.
That's great. Both your moms smiled at her, while Derek and Cove didn't seem to appreciate her phrasing. But with the plan decided, all three parents waved and headed for your house. It was just you teenagers now. Elizabeth looked at you and the others, a curious expression on her face. So, what now? You silently wondered if Elizabeth only stayed out with you to avoid getting roped into work. Then again, she could just genuinely want to hang out. You couldn't tell with your sister. Cove spoke up after no one else did to answer Elizabeth's question. Wanna go down to the shopping street? It's been a while, and I don't think there's a lot of other things we could agree on. Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Sounds awesome to me. Unlike you guys, I haven't been there 1,001 times. It's new to me. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. You strolled across the road as a group down to the beach and then to the left. It took less than 15 minutes to arrive, one of the conveniences of Sunset Bird. The four of you looked around at the familiar shops, trying to see if anything caught your attention this time. Derek was the most enthusiastic. He checked out every stall with his eyes wide with wonder. Elizabeth and Cove were in good spirits as well. That's cool. He ran over to a street magician who was currently doing a card trick for a group of enchanted tourists. Derek clapped when the magician showed a middle-aged man his card. Derek turned back to the group with a curious gleam on his face. So, wartet mal einen Moment. Hä? Jetzt bin ich aber verwirrt. What does it take to perform here anyway? Do you have to ask somebody, or do you just show up and start doing stuff? Who would you even ask? It's a public street. Hey, Miss Mayor? Mayor? Huh? Can I pull a rabbit out of my hat? Please, Flopsy is well behaved, I promise. Derek chuckled, his eyes searching up and down the scene. Maybe there's a boss of the shopping street? No one does any of this around my neighborhood. It's just regular stores behind walls. It's different if someone wants a real store, but here I'm pretty sure people are just putting on their little shows whenever they want and do whatever. That's so neat. Would be allowed to do something too? Cove laughed and Derek began almost vibrating with excitement. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. What would we do? Well, I don't know. Not yet. I mean, I just found out it's a possibility, you know? But there's gotta be something. We know cool stuff. I'm sure if we think about it, we could plan a show that really get a crowd pumped. You thought it was a great idea and wanted to be a part of it? You felt he could try this idea on his own? You thought Derek needed to abandon that bad idea as that? You gave a look to the other two. You gave a look to the other two. Derek continued to brainstorm out loud about different potential performances while you glanced over at Cove and Elizabeth. I mean, I can bounce a soccer ball on my head. Last time I tried it, I got 8 bounces before it fell. I wouldn't bring a ball here.
Why?
Why not? Cove gestured to everything around, the stores, the people, all the colorful chaos that made up the shopping street. Would you want to chase a lost ball here? And what if it hit somebody? Even if you're good, someone else could bump into you. That's true. Derek thought about it some more. Then he watched another performer, a woman doing tricks with 2 small dogs. One was fluffy and cream-colored, while the other was a cool gray. The woman held up rings. Both animals jumped through the openings, happy to receive a treat at the end. Derek brightened. Maybe I'll teach crabs how to race. Crabs? It could work. With some amusement, the gang continued to pursue the stalls. Elizabeth found some earrings with a dangling, badly misprinted globe that everyone laughed at. Cove picked out a blob as Iceland, but Derek thought that it had to be Greenland. You know, this is a world with what looks like 9 continents. I think you're both wrong. You wanted to side with Cove. You backed up Derek. You agreed with your sister. No, it's Australia. You stayed out of it. Suddenly, Cove froze. You stared at him and then tried to see what caught his attention. When you saw a familiar face down the way, it all made sense. Between the crowds, his bright hair stood out like a neon green bowl in a kitchen sink. It was Jeremy. Jeremy slowly drifted his eyes down the street, and his eyes widened in mutual recognition. He definitely noticed you. Derek frowned and Cove tensed up. You couldn't help but remember the last time you'd seen Jeremy at Miranda's birthday party. No wonder Cove was already defensive. You decided to smile at Jeremy. Wir sind einfach mal so, das ist kein Hallo, komm mal rüber, sondern einfach nur so, hi, gesehen und tschüss. You decided to smile at Jeremy. He just looked dismissive. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. Her gaze swept over Jeremy without a hint of a clue. Jeremy simply scoffed to himself and waded deeper into the crowd of people. Derek relaxed and exhaled loudly. I'm glad he's not gonna start anything. He peeked over at Elizabeth with a tiny smirk. See, that was the mean kid.
What?
Huh? She still didn't get it. That first summer day hadn't made nearly as much of an impression on her as it did for Derek, but he smiled and waved it off. Just forget about him. I already have. He laughed and Cove smiled tightly. He seemed in a much better mood now that Jeremy was gone. Your eyes wandered over to where Jeremy disappeared. You hadn't forgotten the day you met him either. He was only going to be in town for a vacation with the parents he hated. That glimpse was probably the last time you would ever see him. You mentioned that realization to everyone. You kept that thought to yourself. You broke from the group and went after. You kept the thought to yourself. Elizabeth snapped her fingers in front of your face. Apparently, you had spaced out. Cove and Derek were already at the next stall. Come on, unless you want to get left here. You nodded and caught up with the others. Cove raised an eyebrow. What were you thinking about? Nothing. He gave you a searching look, but let it drop when Derek yelled at you to go check something out. Jeremy was unlike anyone you had ever met before. You thought he was horrible, you thought he was weird, you thought he was stupid, you thought he was kind of pitiful, you thought he was kind of okay, you didn't know what to think about him. Keine Ahnung. Wir kennen ihn ja nicht. Ja, und der erste Eindruck war halt einfach irgendwie so, Aber, You and the group moved on from the stall and from Jeremy. It didn't take long for everyone to return to the joking. You all enjoyed what little time you had left as Elizabeth mentioned the hour was almost up. The little troop had flown by and lunch must have been waiting for you now. Derek bounced on the balls of his feet.
Okay.
Come on guys, let's get going so we can eat. I'm starving. Ja, you nodded silently. Wir sind so ein bisschen, schade, letzter Tag und sowas, ne? Und wir sind ehrlich gesagt emotional fix und fertig. You nodded silently. Kof stretched one of his arms lazily. Let's go then. You looked at him appraisingly. Ja. You nodded at him. Wir hätten ihn ja nicht fragen können, so, hey, trag mich bitte. Das ist übertrieben. Then you followed Elizabeth as she took it upon herself to lead the way home. She walked fast, much faster than Derek preferred. She kept gaining a lead, and then Derek would jog back up to the group. With Cove's long legs, he had no trouble keeping up. You moved to the front with Elizabeth. You walked side by side with Cove. You stayed with her. Wir sind natürlich bei Cove. Hallo, wir sind jetzt richtig lost track, okay? You walked side by side with Cove. You kept close to your neighbor. You both chatted about things you'd seen at the shopping street, with Derek chiming in every so often. You caught Cove smiling at you a couple times. He was happy you were spending time with him. It was a pleasant walk home, and in no time you had made it back. Klar, easy kurz nach Hause tragen, obwohl keiner wissen darf, dass sie zusammen sind. Ja, genau so. It was a pleasant walk home, and in no time you had made it back. Derek got the front door and held it open for everyone as you each moss-eyed inside. The three parents were still in the kitchen. They looked up and waved. Welcome back, everyone. You made it just in time.
Hey.
I hope you're hungry. So did everyone have a nice time out? She gestured for people to take a seat at the table. Plates and silverware have already been placed out. You took your normal seat. Elizabeth sat across from you, and Derek took the seat to your left. Cove sat on your right. But he blushed a little and began fidgeting with his silverware. His dad was the first to pick up on his extra awkwardness, but your moms were far behind. The parents shared looks at Cove's reaction. It seemed that he was struggling with how to act normal around his dad or your parents, or both, after what happened between the two of you upstairs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we had a great time. It was fine. I had fun. I really liked it. Yeah, I really liked it. That's good in my book. Casually, Mr. Holden sat in the empty seat across from Cove. He smiled at you and all the other kids. Mom set down a platter full of water glasses on the table. She looked down at the gathering. It's a good thing we have 8 chairs. I can't remember the last time we've had a group this big over for a meal. Can you pass the drinks down to the other side? Make sure you all get one. Sure. Those close to the cups obliqued and started offering waters around. As you passed Cove his drink, your hands touched. Cove froze. Cove, mach nicht diesen. Mach doch nicht diesen. You had already let go, not yet realizing that he was too distracted to function in that moment. Oh nein! The glass fell down to the table, landing with the sharp clatter of glass on wood. Cove scooted his chair back with a restrained shout.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I just get a towel or something? Oh nein, der arme Baby. He looked around in a frantic panic, as if an object to soak up the water would magically appear if you turned his head fast enough. His dad bit his lip in worry, rising from his own seat.
Well...
Cove, what's going on? You've been a little out of it today. Did something happen? Oh no. Cove tensed, frozen again. He stared at the water on the tabletop as if he wanted to sink into it. You spoke up to cover Cove. You blinked on anything that could be said. You admitted what had happened between the two of you. They had to find out sometime. You excellently blurted it out. You spoke up to cover Cove. Wir machen das. If something did happen, you should wait for Cove to want to talk about it. Trying to make him say things in front of everybody wouldn't be good. Mr. Holden nodded slowly. He still seemed worried, but after another look at Cove, he smiled sympathetically.
Right.
Well said, Jenny. I'm here when you're ready, son.
Of course.
Of course. Cove breathed a sigh of relief and shot you an apologetic look. You shot him comment thumbs up. Ta-da. As everything got set up, Ma chided Elizabeth to take her elbows off the table.
No.
And you shouldn't slouch. She pointed to Mr. Holden, who was leaning forward with both arms on the table. Oh mein Gott, Chat, meine Nase juckt dermaßen. She pointed... Also, ja. Oops. Mr. Holden seemed unsure about all the sudden attention and carefully rearranged his posture to something suitable for a fancy dinner. He smiled sheepishly at Ma. Elizabeth rolled her eyes, and Ma gave a level look at her. You shouldn't be impolite to a guest in the house either. Ach, never mind. Elizabeth groaned, long and long-suffering. Ma giggled, and Mr. Holden chuckled.
Not bad.
Da liegen Zeitschriften oder Bücher auf dem Tisch. Bin ich der Einzige, der wissen will, was da drin steht? Das sind sicher irgendwelche Modemagazine oder so. Safe. The lot of you could learn a thing or two from Derek. He has the best manners here. Derek blushed, but it was true. His posture was upright and formal. He even held his fork gracefully. His table manners, on top of all his attempts to aid your parents, made him the model of meal attendee behavior.
Aw.
It's nothing. It's true, though. You have been a lovely guest. I've noticed that, too. It's always nice when you stay over, Derek. Derek smiled and sat a little taller in his chair. Aww. He's a boy. And do you have anything good to say about our other guest? She looked deliberately at Cove with a teasing smirk. Or is there just nothing to say? Well, Cove is my number one, but he does still clean his hand by wiping them on his pants. Oh Mann! Hallo! Cove frowned at that and absent-mindedly brushed his hands on his pant legs. Your moms laughed lightly.
There.
Elizabeth, you should know, after all these years, Cove is hardly a guest anymore. Cove smiled awkwardly. Thanks. Manners. Who cares? I don't think it's that big of a deal. You teased Cove for his bad habit. You complimented Derek on his politeness. Yeah. You joked that Derek was basically an adult. You kept quiet and took a bite of food. Who cares? Manners. Ich glaube, sowas würde ich sagen. Manners. Don't think I'm not seeing your elbows where they shouldn't be, Jenny. Das ist tatsächlich etwas, was ich sogar rein anatomisch begründen kann. Man sagt ja immer, man soll im Prinzip, man soll ja nicht so auf dem Tisch sein, sondern, ich mach das mal so, man soll nicht so auf dem Tisch essen und dann so, ne, sondern so. Das Ding ist, Kinder sind einfach kleiner und dementsprechend ist der Teller, beziehungsweise ist es extremst unbequem für die zu essen, wenn die nicht den Ellenbogen auf den Tisch drauflegen. Ich kann das ja so schlecht machen, aber die können das halt einfach rein anatomisch nicht. Und irgendwann mal ist es halt auch tatsächlich angenehmer für Erwachsene, wenn die den Ellenbogen nicht auf dem Tisch haben, sondern den Unterarm gegen die Tischkante. Das ist so, das ist anatomisch so. Habe ich herausgefunden. Ob es stimmt, weiß ich nicht, aber habe ich herausgefunden. Indem ich Kinder und größere Kinder, also die einfach mal größer waren als sonst, halt beobachtet habe. Ach, deswegen legt Mali auch immer den Ellbogen auf den Tisch. Boah, Pionier. Das ist jetzt gemein. Everyone ate their meal together and continued to hang out for the afternoon. After the food, you and the others played a couple of games and talked about plans for the upcoming year. Aber auch wahr. The time passed by quickly. As soon as it was time to part ways, Mr. Holden talked to your moms and Cove drifted over to you, knowing that as soon as his dad finished up, he would be leaving. Oh no. Wissenschaftsjenka hat geforscht. Ja. It'd be cool to stay, but we have some stuff to do before everything closes today.
Okay.
Yeah, bye. Could you move? I need the phone. Boy. Cove raised an eyebrow and Elizabeth impatiently gestured behind him. Cove realized he was standing right in front of where the receiver was placed. He sidestepped out of the way and shook his head, clearly thinking Elizabeth was rushing too much. Your sister made a beeline for the phone and started dialing the number of what you figured was one of her friends. Knowing Elizabeth, she was going to be on there for a while. You, Cove, and Derek shuffled closer to the door. It seemed like Mr. Holden was wrapping up his conversation, so everyone started saying their various farewells.
Talk to you later.
See you later, Cove. We gotta do this again sometime. Yeah, see you. Cove turned to you and smiled slightly. Bye, Jenny. Wir sind vor den anderen. Wir müssen ein bisschen diskret vorgehen. You hugged Cove goodbye. You patted Cove on the back. You nudged Cove's shoulder. You ruffled Cove's hair. You waved. You nudged Cove's shoulder. You elbowed Cove's shoulder playfully. I'll see you later. I'd hope so. It's been fun. He grinned widely and nudged you back. There was a warm look in his eyes that you wondered when you'd see again.
Dude.
Seriously, dude, we'll have to hang out later. I'm gonna miss you during school. He offered Cove a high five and the two boys clapped their hands together. Cove and his dad left soon after that. Your parents started cleaning up the house and Elizabeth was still chatting to her friends on the phone. It was just you and Derek left. He elected to stay outside in front of the house to wait for his dad to pick him up. You decided to keep your guest company, although he was originally Cove's visitor. Sagen Sie mal. Wann schreibst du deine eigene Romance Graphic Novel? Ich bin ganz ehrlich, ich fände es ultra interessant, mal so ein Buch zu schreiben. Aber also ich kann halt nicht malen, ne? Also ein bisschen kritzeln kann ich, aber es reicht halt nicht für so eine Graphic Novel. Dann kann ich nur schriftlich dienen. So. A light summer breeze blew through your hair and Derek shifted his weight from foot to foot. Thanks for waiting with me. He kicked at the ground distractedly. That's still gonna be a while, so do you want to go for a walk? Sure, I don't mind. The two of you walked down the street again, just wandering without a destination planned. It was a quiet stroll, too quiet for Derek being the company. Uh-oh. Schreibt den Bums, ich würde es lesen. Mal sehen, sowas dauert. You turned to him when you had noticed that he wasn't saying a word. That was unusual. Derek always had something he could chat about. You weren't sure if you should ask about it. Somehow you ended up at the old park near the beach. You glanced over to Derek once more, still expecting him to say something any second now. However, nothing came from him. In fact, now you noticed a frown creeping on his face. Derek smiled when he realized you were watching. At least his mouth was turned up. There wasn't anything that really felt happy in the expression. He turned away and the smile fell off his face. His eyes stared intently at the ground and you raised an eyebrow. Is everything okay? If you want to talk about something, I'm here. Derek, what's going on? You kept quiet. Oh. Is everything okay? I'm a little sad. It's just with school starting back up again, it's gonna be harder to visit. I'm gonna have homework and clubs and practices and everything else.
This sucks.
It really sucks we go to different schools. His face screwed up and his fists were closed tightly together. This was really concerning him. What if we don't have time? You channeled some optimism into the conversation. You shared those worries. You channeled some optimism. We'll make time. We can talk over the phone and have plans for weekends. It'll be okay. Derek looked up at the sky. It was orange and purple with little wisps of clouds scattered around. A plane flew high with a jet stream trailing behind. Then he turned to the ground again. Derek's face was tilted far enough down that it was harder to read his expression. Hey. Hey Jenny, I actually wanted to talk to you about something, if you don't mind. There was a pause and you waited for him to finish his thought.
Sorry.
Ich wusste es. I was just kind of wondering, do you like guys at all? Like, would you ever want to be with someone who was a boy? Sorry if that's weird to ask. I could be with a guy. Maybe. I don't know. You didn't answer him. I kind of don't want to talk about that. So, wir sind jetzt erstmal ehrlich. Wir müssen ja nicht direkt sagen, ja, also ich habe einen Freund und ja, du kennst ihn. Aber sag das bitte nicht, okay? Das können wir ja nicht bringen, also hallo. I could be with a guy. Okay, then. Nein. He hesitated before finishing his question. So, what I mean... Oh nein, Derek. Warum? Warum? So, what I mean is, just, is there any guy you think is kind of cool that you like around here? Not as cool or anything like that? Oh no. He ducked his head further. You already knew the answer. You had confronted that very topic this afternoon. Kacke, was machen wir jetzt? Warum haben wir nur so wenig Antwortmöglichkeiten? Well, I like Cove. I don't really want to say that. Sind wir ehrlich? Wir sind ehrlich. Ich meine, wir sind ja auch unseren Eltern gegenüber ehrlich. Deswegen, ja, ne, komm. Okay, never mind. Wir sagen ja nicht, dass wir zusammen sind. Oder wir sagen ja auch nicht, dass er auch gesagt hat, dass er uns mag. Wir sagen einfach nur, ich mag ihn. Die Frage ist, kann Derek schweigen? Solange wir ja nichts über eine Beziehung oder sowas sagen, ne? Das ist ja, wir reden ja offen darüber, dass wir ihn mögen. Von daher, well, I like Cove. Derek chuckled and didn't look at all surprised. Sorry, baby. Wolltest du mir jetzt gerade deine Liebe gestehen? I'm sorry. Falls ja, es tut mir leid. Yeah, I kinda thought so. That's cool. I really hope things work out. Thanks for answering my random questions. He shot you a thumbs up. I hope we'll always be friends, no matter what. Even if we don't see each other for a long time, or if we get really busy, I still hope... He cut himself off and met your eyes. There was something serious to him, sincerely worried that you'd fall out of friendship. I hope so too. I want us to be friends forever. We're always going to be friends. I don't know what's coming. You're not excited. We're always going to be friends. Derek smiled, mostly to himself. He seemed a little more like the usual. Then for sure we have to make the most of next year, then the year after that, and the year after that. He rambled on for a while about things. We'll just make the most of every year. Yeah, right. You smiled and felt like your friendship was still strong. Strong! You didn't spend much longer at the park after that. Derek didn't want to miss his dad, so you both made your way back to your street. After Derek went back home, you decided to settle in for the night. Stretching your arms over your head, you noticed that the living room and the phone were free. You took it easy. Wir würden es gerne Lee erzählen, aber you took it easy. You flopped onto the couch and wiggled until you were positioned just right, and you knew when it was perfect because all the exhaustion from the day started fading away. Sighing contentedly, you were pleased with this end to the day. Looking at the clock on the wall, you saw that there was only about 10 minutes until your moms would be insisting you had to go to bed so you could be rested enough for school. You stretched your legs out on the couch and sighed in defeat, watching the minute hand change 1 minute closer to bedtime. You rearranged yourself, feeling restless, and looked out the window. Startled, initially you spotted a figure out in the hills. It was Cove. When the surprise faded, you realized it really wasn't that much of a shock at all. It was exactly something Cove would do. You went outside to meet up with him. You ran off to go to see him. You left him alone. You smacked the window to get his attention. You opened the window to call out. You ran off to go see him. Sprinting, you reached the front door in record time. You didn't think you'd see Cove again that day. You had to go to him. Aww. When you arrived, you noticed how many fireflies were out that night. They drifted along lazily, barely minding your presence as you waded through to reach the top of the hill. Cove turned towards you as you approached, and you noticed right away that Cove looked happy to see you. Hey. You had a bounce in your step. You weren't sure how long you'd get before your moms roped you back inside for bed. Hey, what are you doing out here?
Nothing.
Nothing. Not really. He shrugged, seeming unhappy with his own answer. You stared at him, waiting for him to continue. Well, I guess I was feeling kind of weird about stuff, so I'm getting some fresh air before bed. You really should go to sleep? And know how you feel? I feel good. I hope you feel better. You shrugged back. You nodded. I hope you feel better. His mouth pulled into a bent smile. He spoke so quietly that you almost missed it. I think I will. Cove let himself fall back onto his butt and then all the way down, so he was laying on his back. He looked up at the sky. You laid down yourself. You sat in the grass. You stood there. You sat on his chest. What? You sat on his chest. Well, es steht da, Deadmaster, danke für die 100 Bits. Das ist aber auch kacke, ne? Im Aktivitätsfeed steht dein Name und überall woanders steht anonym. Es funktioniert einfach nicht. Ich habe Twitch gedribbelt. Deadmaster, vielen Dank für 100 Bitties. You laid down yourself. You lowered yourself to lay back on the hill. He had been lost in thought or was possibly waiting for you to situate yourself, but he started speaking unprompted again. Thanks for telling me about my dad and the money he offered you to be my friend. Daran hast du noch gedacht? This was probably the last thing you were expecting out of him. Cove seemed to pick up on that and stretch his arm out wide in front of him.
I mean...
This is where we met, remember? It happened that day. You could recall the sad little boy with a pink cast who you found in this very spot. It felt like a lifetime ago. I kind of have a strange feeling looking at you. Not in a bad way, just thinking about you then and really seeing you now. It's something. He turned his face away from you. You got the impression he was trying to hide a blush. It was almost unbelievable how much of an impact he made on your life just by moving in next door. You couldn't even imagine what your days might have looked like in a world where you hadn't met him. Cove glanced back at you, waiting for a response, and you had no idea what to say. Then, still without a word from you, Cove gave an exaggerated shrug. What? It's you. Huh? He snickered before answering. He looked thoroughly amused with your reaction. That's what you do all the time, so I'm being you. Was? Hä? Warte mal, hä? You do that all the time too? So do you? Cove? You were stunned he noticed enough to take note of it? I don't do it that much. Not being able to argue with his assessment, you accepted it? You felt bashful about his joke? You were stunned he noticed enough to take note of it? Warte mal, wir müssen nochmal zurück. Warte mal. Exaggerated shrug. Okay. Wir machen jetzt mal So Do You. Hallo. Really? Yes, always. Kov couldn't help but grin at that. Honestly, there weren't many people you could think of who could tease you about something like that. Returning his smile, you realized there was no denying that you two have been around each other for a long time. Kov broke the quiet before it could fully settle.
See you tomorrow.
Hey, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, see you then. With a final wave, Cove headed for home, but you stayed there a few minutes longer. Your mind kept going back to his simple statement, see you tomorrow. No matter how much was changing around you, there were some things in your life that always seemed to remain true. The hills felt warm to you that night. Before you knew it, you were getting comfortable under the covers in your room. Your mind couldn't help but still be buzzing with thoughts about the future. It was hard not to think about Cove. There hadn't been enough time to really figure it all out after what happened between you. You felt excited. There was a little doubt in your mind that things were moving forward, and you couldn't wait to find out what changes were waiting for you on the horizon. Slowly, your eyes grew heavy as you drifted off to sleep, your mind spinning with wishful thoughts. No matter what happened next, you could only hope that you would make the most of it. You were ensnared in a dream when a noise from the outside world jostled you. Your eyes snapped open, noises happened, you just tried to forget it. You stubbornly kept your eyes pressed shut. Your eyes snapped open. The light clatter continued. Now that you were more alert, you could distinguish it as a tapping sound, quiet, slow, but persistent. Each beat was like being poked. You couldn't ignore it. You lifted your head from the pillow and looked for the source. Not much work was needed to puzzle it out. It was from the window. With that, you knew exactly what it was. From the color of the light filtering into your room, it was too early for anyone to be awake, including the sun. It had barely hauled itself over the horizon, but that didn't stop some people, it seemed. You sat up in bed and opened the window wide. Cool air, not yet warmed by the day, tickled your face as it pushed into your room. And just as you'd expected, there was your neighbor crouching on your windowsill. He was fully dressed, though not for school. He was wearing a wetsuit and a shy smile.
Jenny.
Hi, Jenny. Oh, wieder guckt. Ich glaub's nicht. Hallelujah. You stared back, blinking. So technically, we won't be back to school for a few more hours. His voice was delicate yet deliberate. Each word a careful explanation. Classes haven't actually started yet, so do you want to hit the beach with me one more time this summer? Oh, du bist so süß. Oh mein Gott. How? Wie kannst du bitte ein lebendiges Etwas sein? Wie? Always. Here we go again. It's way too early, Cove. You're crazy. Cove, you're so cute. Yeah, you're so cute. You gave a decisive nod. Cove, you're so cute. Oh Gott. Wie weit seid ihr mit eurem Date? Das Date ist schon vorbei. Das Date ist vorbei. Wir beenden jetzt gerade unsere Sommerferien. Also fast. Und das ist nicht gut, dass ich so viel trinke, weil ich muss die ganze Zeit schon auf Toilette. Und ja, ich mache die ganze Zeit so, weil ich total happy bin. Cove, you're so cute. His smile widened affectionately. Aww. You rushed to get changed into something suitable while Cove climbed back down to ground level. Grr? Was? Das klingt ja heiß. Hä? Als ob du dich in Real Life freuen würdest, wenn jemand so früh an deinem Fenster klopfen würde. Ich würde es halt einfach nicht mitkriegen. Bin ich ganz ehrlich. Ich krieg's nicht mit. Es lebt. Ich dachte, da wäre jemand langweilig und hat das programmiert, dass das so sein soll. Ja. Ja, auch, aber egal. You rushed to get changed into something suitable while Cove climbed back down to ground level. Your limbs, still half asleep, struggled somewhat as you attempted to coordinate them into a swimsuit, but you got there in the end. Soon you were tiptoeing out of your front door, clutching a towel. Cove was already there to greet you. Wenn man Kopfhörer auf hat, hört man schlecht jemanden am Fenster klopfen. Ich kann nicht mit Kopfhörern schlafen. Your eyes met. Cove's gaze started to your destination and back to you. You checked the door was closed, gave him a thumbs up, and the two of you leapt into action. Wordlessly, you began to run down the familiar path ahead, Cove beside you. The thrill of your illicit outing made you want to laugh. Not that you dared. If anyone in your family looked out and saw you, then your summer would be back to being over. One glance at Cove told you that he was exactly the same, holding back Snickers for fear of being hurt and caught. The towel streamed out from under your arm like a cape. You were running so fast downhill that simply keeping your balance and not tumbling down was a real threat. It just wasn't enough of one to make you slow your pace. For every step you took, the beach was a little closer and the day a little brighter. What lay ahead for you would arrive, and you were happy to meet it. In between. Ist das jetzt... Okay. Ich würde jetzt einfach sagen... mache ich jetzt hier... Ja, komm, ich mache das jetzt noch zu Ende. Also, das bleibt immer noch alles gleich. Aber wir ändern... Jetzt sind wir ja erwachsen. Wavy one, blunt, but... Oh, süß. Wollen wir kurze Haare haben? Jenny, sollst du nicht arbeiten gehen? Hä? Wie soll ich arbeiten gehen? Warum soll ich denn arbeiten? Also jetzt. Nice, ich sehe durch das Fenster gerade ein Keyboard. Lol. Spielst du Keyboard? Ach, da hinten meinst du? Ich spiele nicht aktiv Keyboard, aber ich könnte mir was beibringen, wenn ich etwas auf Gehör spiele und dann lerne dann, ne? Mm. Pulled back, smooth, choppy, curled. Ich weiß ja nicht so ganz. Ah, guck mal, Flowey, das sieht doch besser aus. Ich glaube... Oh ja, guck mal. Ah. Ich glaube, wir lassen das dann so. Ich mag die gelockten Sachen dann nicht. Change page. Birthmarks, scars, rosy cheeks. Ich finde, das sieht so gruselig aus. Glasses. Ja, ne? Na, guck mal, wir nehmen mal die. Einfach nur so goldene. So, Birthmarks. Back. Scars. Freckles. Ja. Braces? Na, keine Braces mehr. Change page. Ring. Jewels. Pattern. Plain. Jewels. Wenn ich einen Ring habe, der hat der hat viele drauf. Headscarf. Achso. Nail. Long nail color. Plain. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink. Black, plain. Nose ring? No. Okay. Ich spiele auch Keys und andere Instrumente. Richtig cool. Ich wünschte, ich könnte richtig spielen. Kein Plan, deshalb frage ich ja, weil normal musst du doch donnerstags entweder zur Uni oder zum Arbeiten. Deshalb, ja, und ich habe eigentlich auch auf Discord so geschrieben, dass jetzt durch Arbeitswechsel kann ich donnerstags und freitags normal streamen, ohne irgendwo hin zu müssen. So. Change page. Achso. Dann. Oha. Oha, okay. Wir natürlich absolute Liebe. Und wir sind bei ihm auch immer noch komplett relaxed. Also, ja, so, ja. So. Okay, ich drücke jetzt gleich auf Ready, dann wird direkt auch das Neue losgehen. Dementsprechend werde ich dann halt erstmal direkt... Vielleicht speichere ich jetzt erstmal. Ach, guck mal. Das kann ich jetzt so machen. Ach, guck mal. Perfekt. Dann fangen wir das nächste Mal den neuen Step an. Und schauen dann, wie Cove aussieht. Jetzt noch eine Woche warten, ne? Kann ich nicht. Ich kann nicht noch... Nee, nicht mal eine Woche. Chat, ich bin nächste Woche gar nicht da. Ich streame nächste Woche nur Dienstag. Dienstag? Ich glaube Dienstag. Ich glaube, ich habe Dienstag geplant, weil ich Donnerstag, Freitag nicht kann. Mal sehen. Vielleicht machen wir einfach Dienstag dann ein bisschen, weil ich kann jetzt nicht aufhören. Ich will jetzt wissen, wie es weitergeht. Naja, auf jeden Fall. Ich sage danke fürs dabei sein und dann bis zum nächsten Mal, YouTube. Tschüssi!